Welcome to Subramani. I was asked to read an article about the impact of social media influences on market, and I went through some of those videos. I professionally had to do it, so I did it, and I realized one thing, that many of these influencers have little or no experience of being in the markets, and therefore they are so successful on YouTube. And if you're wondering what am I saying, I'm saying something very simple. If you have been in the markets from, say, in the 90s, let's say 88, 89, 79, 80, whatever, if you have been in the markets, you would have gone through that period of 1996 to 2003, and you would have been scarred by the market. Really, what happened in the market during that period was market went nowhere. People made career switches saying, oh, nothing is going to happen in the mutual fund industry, the markets are going nowhere. You can of course keep on telling people you should do an SIP, and then you will have our pink papers doing an article. Last 5 years, if you have done an SIP versus if you have done if you have invested in PPF, this is what would have happened. You would have made more money in PPF. Your father would pick up that article and show it to you and said, I told you, markets are not meant for us. We are not Gujaratis, we are not Marwaris. Why are you investing? So you would have been scarred by that, and then people would say, see, your advisor told you 5 years you will make money, whereas 96 you invested, in 2001 you have not made money. As though 5 years was some rule, and things like that. That is what would have happened. You would have been scarred. So you would have waited till 2003, and in 2003 when you recovered your prices, you would have just sold, right? So what happened was, you have been so badly hit, said you bought some mutual fund at 10 rupees, that NAV went down to 8 rupees, and you were waiting, and then at 10 you sold. Now, having this influence in 2003, would you have had the guts to buy and hold for the next 4 or 5 years? Extremely doubtful. If you had invested when the index was 3000, there is a very good chance that you would have sold off at 6000, because that happened very quickly. If you had invested at 6, you may have exited at 9. So you'll find very few people who invested at the index of 3000 and still held on to 21,000, or maybe sold at 21,000 and then saw it come down to 9, right? It went from 9 to 21, back to 9, and then it very quickly went from 9 back to 17, 18. Then it struggled a bit, and then it crossed 21 more comprehensively. But if you have been an investor since 2008, then your experience is very different. The chances are you will say, okay, even if the market goes down, the recovery is very quick. So 2008-9, 2017-18, 2020, during the pandemic, the recoveries were very fast, which meant every CEO of every mutual fund said, you have to be invested during bad times. I'm wondering what these CEOs were doing from 1996 to 2003, whether they were continuing their SIPs. Now, what happens is also, the reason why people invest is the immediate past return and the influence of that in your head. Now, suppose you hear that in the year 2022, the market fell 35%. Let us assume that 2022 year ended March, you got a negative return. It's not going to be possible. So let's say March 2023, you got a negative return of minus 23% or something like that. Dramatically bad year, and you got minus 23. Then that minus 23 takes a long time to go away from your head. So even in 2025, if you did a survey, people will say 2024 was very bad, though very good chance that if the market fell 18% in 2023, the market could do well in 2024, because even if it recovered that 18%, to recover that 18%, it has to do very well. So your index started here, went down here, and came here. This growth would look like, wow, it was fantastic growth, but it would take a long time for the persons who were there in 2022 to accept that in 2025 that the market has recovered to at least where they started from. But for a newcomer, it would be very easy to assume, oh, 30% return the market always gives. right? So anybody who has been in the market since 2008 can afford to be very bullish and to have that great CEO theory, which is an asset gathering theory, that you should be doing your SIP during difficult times or bad times. You should be doing. It's very difficult to do it during bad times when it does not recover for 7 years or 6 years. That is the challenge. The challenge is not being invested for 3 months. Now, when you are starting a channel and you're talking about being an influencer, all you're saying is be bullish. Whatever it is, you keep buying. I have bought this, it has worked for me. I bought Colgate in 2006 and now it has gone so much. Or I bought Colgate in 2008 and it has come to so much. Or I bought in 2018, I bought HDFC Bank, it has done very well. You are obviously when you hear this, you know what you're grappling with. You're grappling with survivor bias. Nobody is coming to tell you, and in this period, it is not that there were no bad shares. There was a Yes Bank which was available at 200, 300, 400 rupees, and now it is available at 12 rupees or 13 rupees. It has gone up in a couple of days, so maybe 15 rupees, but nowhere near the cost at which you bought it, right? And then it went through a bad phase. So people are not talking about that. There would have been influencers who told you that you should sell your HDFC Limited and HDFC Bank and buy Yes Bank because the growth rate in the small bank will be much higher. So using that criteria, I could have bought GTB, I could have bought CRB, I could have bought Bank of Baroda, saying the government is experimenting with new people. What happened? That experiment failed. All those people have gone back to their private sector jobs. And no impact at all on the share market, right? Or maybe there was influence in the share market, there was an impact in the share market, but the price must have gone back to where it was because the experiment failed, right? So it is easy to be optimistic on the market in the short run, and only when you're optimistic will you collect a lot of subscribers. But the question is, how useful is experience, how useful is enthusiasm, and how much it is to just collect people who have known nothing, people who have been this takes me back to the Bhagavad Gita, where people who speak well are thought to be good investment experts, right? It says that the Kalyug mein aisa kal aayega when people who speak well are considered to be good investors. It's like me saying, I've got 60 years experience in living, so I can now start talking to you about how to look after your health, because I have done it myself. So you have to just copy what I have done, and it has worked for me, so it will work for you. Well, it won't, because to be able to teach something, to be able to manage something, you need two things. You need education and you need experience, and you need to be able to reach out to people. Reaching out to people can't be the only criteria for becoming a good advisor or becoming an influencer. But today there are many influencers who may not understand how the whole market works, but they are working well for some brokerage houses, maybe for some mutual funds, maybe for some websites which are there to help you with your investments, right? Does not mean what they're saying is right, nor does it mean what they're saying is wrong, but you have to use your own brain and all that. Now this is too painful, because there's a whole what I would call the Swiggy Zomato generation, where they think they can just pick up the phone and they can get food. So somebody trying to tell them, look, you have to go to the market, you have to buy vegetables, you have to clean them, wash them, cut them, and then cook them, seems to be very difficult to accept. So the thing is also, you see this because I have had this conversation with my father and with a lot of friends. Now if you ask a boy or ask any man who is the most beautiful actress, there's a good chance that he will pick up an actress who was at the peak of her career, who was, of course all actresses are good looking, and by that you will be able to know at what age he was. 14, 15, that's the age when he is getting influenced, maybe 12. So 12 to 15, when he was young, the woman who was on top. So for somebody who is 60 years today, it would be some actress who is in her 70s. So it has to be somebody like a Hema Malini or a Zeenat Aman or a Saira Banu, or maybe and for some people older than that, it has to be Waida Rahman, right? And then just after that phase would be Sharmila Tagore, and then slowly you realize that for the other people, they say, oh, Hema Malini, she's too old. For them it would have been, say, a Madhuri Dixit or a Juhi Chawla, and for the younger people it would be a Deepika Padukone, and after that it would be somebody else, and after that I really don't can't come out with a name which is maybe an Alia Bhatt. Same thing you see in cricket also. Somebody like my father would talk of C.K. Naidu, C.S. Naidu, he would talk of Vinu Mankad, he would talk of Vijay Merchant. I just could not identify with them. To me, it required to watch and then say, and only videos, not much of live telecast when Vishwanath or a Gavaskar were batting. So for me, it was Vivian Richards, it was Greg Chappell, it was Ian Chappell, all those people, and not too many Chappell videos were available those days. So largely, maybe the South African players were not there. There was apartheid, and for the other generation after that, it had to be Kapil Dev, Rahul Dravid, Saurav Ganguly, all those Sehwag, Sachin Tendulkar, and then Sehwag, and now Virat Kohli. If you have not seen, if you have not experienced, then you can read about it. You can read about the American Civil War. It will have no impact. For me, the impact was the 1971 war, when there would be sirens and we would go down. I vividly remember it. I can watch the Kashmir Files and have no impact, but the riots in Bombay in 1969, I don't even want to name who did it. I have been influenced. I saw a stone flying over my head, or didn't see it. I woke up only after the stone landed. It just sailed over my head, and nothing happened to me. It could have hit my eye and I could have lost my eye. The impact of some personal experience is obviously far greater than reading about it in the press. So to the revolution in the USSR, which we sat through and read, or the emergency, when we would lap up everything after, just when the emergency was removed, how we lapped up everything which Arun Shuri wrote in Indian Express, and used to be a prolific writer. All those influences. So when you go through it, only then can it hit you, and then it can scar you. It can scar you for a very long period of time. So I would always be afraid of a 6-year recession. But somebody who has come into the market after 2008 can say, I've got 14 years experience, and market always has a very quick, sharp V-shaped recovery. He's also right, I'm also right, but I've been scarred. So people like me, or even people like Prashant Jain, Naren, etc., will constantly be hurt by that period when markets went nowhere, and there was absolutely nothing happening. Your brokerage firm, nothing. They were all struggling. After that, 2003 to 2007 was just fabulous. Then market came down, and after that it has been a great run. But can you wish away that influence of the being scarred, of your incomes dropping by 95%? Answer is no. So some of us will always be conservative, and some of the younger people will always be positive, and that's how they should be, because there is no point. I cannot be so optimistic as some of today's influencers. So I will be as I am, and they will be as they are. So thank you. Bye.